It's a crime hidden in plain sight.
Your child could be tucked in bed every night and still be an ongoing victim of human trafficking, and you may never know. Call for Action reporter Lindsay Sablon has one woman's story that you need to hear.
You didn't expect to see me? Well, this is what trafficking looks like.
Jamie Walton grew up an hour away in Venice, Florida, but behind her seemingly normal childhood, Jamie was hiding a devastating secret.
I was being advertised for the purposes of sex.
At the age of 13, Jamie met a man online. 6 months later,
he asked me if he could come and see me.
From that point forward, things would never be the same.
He would book airline tickets for me. I would use a car service to get to the airport. I would fly to Atlanta. He would pick me up from the airport, and he would advertise me online on certain websites.
Advertise her for sex.
I didn't want to be engaging with these people, but what I did want is love. He made it very clear that he was happy with me when I would do these things.
Remember, she was barely a teen, given drugs, and sold to Johns.
I would meet those people later in the evening, generally in very high-class kind of hotels and establishments.
The whole time,
I was enrolled in school the entire time, so I guess there was no red flags.
We've had scenarios where this is not a troublesome home and there is no abuse going on. The simple issue is that mom and dad are really busy working.
Yarrow Garcia works with human trafficking victims in Lee County and says 70% of the cases she works involve children, typically between 12 and 14.
This is a $152 billion industry a year.
It's an epidemic, and it's happening here.
Eileen Wesley works with trafficking victims in Collier County and says the way these kids are recruited is through the internet or parties.
All of a sudden, they're building up this so-called bill with the person that they're partying with, and then they're asked for payment. And if they don't have the money, they'll say, okay, well, you need to do something for us. And they do it between the hours of they come out of school until their parents are coming home from work. They're out having sex with multiple partners.
Kids forced to work from the time they leave school until their parents come home. In some cases, advocates say victims are sold 30 to 45 times a day.
It's inhumane. It's unheard of.
If there was one word that you could use to describe your situation, could you think of that word? What would it be?
Exploitation. Flat out, I was exploited.
Jamie, who's now a survivor, has dedicated her life to helping the victims who need a voice. But there's one message she wants everyone to hear.
There is no race, there is no age bracket, there is no socioeconomic placement that is not at risk. Every person out there that has some kind of vulnerability is at risk for trafficking.
Each of the women I talked to say if there is one thing you as a parent or a caretaker can do, it's be a snoop. Know who your children are talking to online, what they're posting on social media, and check the apps on their phone. We have links to several resources on this topic on winknews.com.
It only takes one person to save the life of a child. I say that because I've seen it repeatedly in cases, and I've seen it in my own case.
Earlier tonight, we introduced you to Jamie Walton, one of the thousands of faces sold for sex.
All new tonight, Wink News is shining a light on human trafficking and what's being done to help the victims. One woman says there are red flags constantly missed.
And now she's making sure that stops. Call for Action reporter Lindsay Sablon has the story.
The average victim in this area could be sold 30 to 40, 45 times, maybe even more in one day.
In one day?
In one day, repeatedly.
Yarrow Garcia works with victims of human trafficking in Lee County. And the numbers she's talking about are for cases she's seen in our area.
About 70% of the cases in our area in Lee County are sex trafficking cases that involve children.
But there's another scary statistic. A study released by Loyola University says nearly 88% of victims get medical treatment while trafficked. But in most cases, providers send them right back to the person hurting them.
One thing we know for sure is that it had to do with lack of awareness within the medical professionals.
And that's where Garcia's work comes in. She testified in D.C. just months ago, demanding change to how these cases are handled. Out of that came SOAR, Stop, Observe, act, respond, a new training protocol that could be required for medical providers.
They should be able to go in that hospital or that healthcare facility, and someone should be able to say, I'm going to get you the help you need.
It teaches them how to identify a victim and a potential trafficker hiding as her boyfriend, how to talk to them, and it requires the hospital or clinic call a local center that specializes in helping trafficked victims.
Being trauma informed obviously is a huge aspect of that.
For Jamie Walton, who was trafficked at the age of 13, she says these changes could make all the difference.
I did confide in one person. It gave me the sense of perspective that I don't have to be victimized to be loved.
Training for SOAR starts in August, and right now it's optional, but Garcia is hoping that it becomes mandatory nationwide. Meanwhile, I did reach out to our local hospitals just to see if they plan on implementing this training. NCH tells me they've already had training that's very similar to SOAR, and Lee Memorial says they are looking into it, but they don't have anyone signed up just yet. But like you heard in Jamie's case, just one person knowing the right things to say, it made all the difference.
And I know you'll stay on top of the hospitals around here too and see if they
We will be checking in continuously to see if they implement those, and if they're going to be going to that training, I would love to even go with them on that training and see what it's like.
All right. Thank you, Lindsay.